Hello, friends! German cars have always been in high demand, and it's not without reason. Their reliability and functionality are truly enviable. We know many German car brands, but one of the most popular for many decades has been the BMW Group. Its models have long been symbols of luxury and sporty style. Today, the Bavarian company represents a giant conveyor, with numerous car factories not only in Germany, but also in other countries around the world, from the USA to Egypt. People often say, in life, you can change many things, but a gentleman can only change his BMW for another BMW. Finally, it's time to tell the story of the creation and development of this car brand on our channel, which, by the way, has been around for more than 120 years, and without a doubt, it will be interesting to everyone. But it all started back in December 1896 in the city of Eisenach, where a certain Heinrich Erhard, a talented engineer and nephew of the famous inventor and successful locomotive manufacturer Johann Heinrich Erhard, opened his first engineering plant. He didn't just start producing cars and components out of nowhere. Initially, the factory produced exclusively vehicles designed for the needs of the German army. These were ambulances, mobile soldier kitchens, carriages, and even bicycles. It is also worth noting that at that time, Heinrich was already 50 years old, and almost nothing is known about his childhood and youth, except that he was born in 1840 in Thuringia, and at the age of 24 went to work at the Hartmann engineering plant in Chemnitz, the largest Saxon company at that time. It was there that he developed a love for mechanisms, which stayed with him for the rest of his life. In general, it was another factory that produced everything necessary for the needs of the army, and at that time, there was no talk of mass production of civilian cars. There was no idea, no design bureau, and not even a desire to produce something like that. Most likely, it would have ended there if not for an article in a local newspaper that Heinrich came across one morning at breakfast. The article vividly described the incredible achievements and success of his German colleagues, namely Daimler and Benz, and specifically talked about their incredibly popular motor carriages at that time. For those who haven't seen the history of Mercedes-Benz on our channel, let me remind you that it was Carl Benz who invented the first car with an internal combustion engine. In general, Benz was a pioneer in the field of automotive engineering. Heinrich realized that he should not stay on the sidelines and leave all the glory to Benz and Daimler. At that moment, he had the idea to create something that millions of people would talk about. Of course, Erhard understood that he was no worse than his colleagues and could also create something unique. At that moment, he decided to try to design something light, non-military, and importantly, different from competitors. But to save time and money, Erhard decided to take a different path. He simply bought a license from the French for a Parisian car called Bucciali. And so, friends, this is how what we know today as BMW came to be. Back then, it was simply called a motorized carriage Wartburg. Just a few months later, in September 1898, the Wartburg arrived on its own at the car exhibition in Düsseldorf and took its place alongside Daimler, Opel, and De Dietrich. A year later, the Wartburg even won 2 major car races. In total, the Wartburg received 22 medals during its lifetime, one of which was awarded for elegant design. Overall, the Wartburg had its place, but its story ended a few years later when Erhard's factory faced bankruptcy in 1903. The reason for this was the company's large debts, which accumulated year after year and were not covered. At that moment, the question of closing the enterprise or changing its direction arose sharply. However, help came unexpectedly from one of Erhard's shareholders, a stock speculator named Jakob Shapiro, who did not want to part with the motorized carriage he loved so much, and of course the income from its production. Shapiro invested a significant amount in the company and became a savior for Erhard's enterprise. He also took on some of the responsibilities and powers. Just a year later, under his careful guidance, the factory began constructing Dixie cars, built under a license from the British Austin. The first batch of cars went to the public with right-hand drive, which was the first and last time in continental Europe that the passenger sat on the left side. From 1904, 15,122 Dixie cars were produced, and they were very popular at the time. Car sales were booming, but competition forced them to innovate and finally invent something of their own. The Dixie 315 PS became their own development, reaching a significant speed of 75 km/h for those times. However, this car was also built on the basis of the English Dixie, and Heinrich still dreamed of his own car. But production under the shareholders' leadership was aimed only at profit. To increase profits, the company invited Carl Friedrich Rapp, a Swiss engineer and aviation enthusiast. He was a knowledgeable and enthusiastic person, but success eluded him. Under BMW's wing, Carl opened his own small production of aircraft engines and airplanes. He had everything: desire, enthusiasm, and a good head on his shoulders. But unfortunately, no luck. His first biplane, presented at an exhibition, simply did not take off. But the engineer did not give up and worked even harder on the next biplane with his own engine. However, at this stage, the company did not achieve success. The exhibition planned for 1914, on which they placed special emphasis, simply did not take place due to the war. It seemed like the perfect time to create engines and airplanes for the Army's needs. But even here, luck was not on Rapp's side. His engines were so noisy that local residents even signed a petition to prevent planes with Rapp's engines from flying over their homes. On March 7, 1916, his company was registered under the name Bavarian Aircraft Works, BFW, but the enterprise needed new investments. At this point, a new character appeared on the scene, Viennese banker Camillo Castiglione, who bought Rapp's share in the company, bringing the capitalization of what was then BFW to almost 1.5 million marks. In general, I got confused about who was responsible for what. It is only known that under the BMW flag, there were diverse productions controlled by different people, but they were united by one parent company. After the Viennese banker bought a share of the Bavarian Aircraft Works, the company invited Franz Josef Popp, an Austro-Hungarian naval officer with an engineering degree who actively followed technical achievements. He proposed his plan for the company's development. The first thing Popp did was hire Max Friz, a former engineer from Daimler. On July 21, 1917, a historic entry was made in the Munich registration office. Bavarian Aircraft Works, BFW, was now called Bavarian Motor Works, BMW. It was on that day that the well-known BMW brand appeared. It is also worth noting that even after the name change, the main product of the Bavarian Motor Works remained the same: aircraft engines. After the war, the Treaty of Versailles was signed, prohibiting the production of aircraft engines in Germany. However, this did not stop BMW. On June 9, 1919, a plane equipped with a BMW engine reached an altitude of 9,760 meters. However, this record was not officially recognized due to the Treaty of Versailles. Meanwhile, banker Castiglione bought another aircraft engine factory for the company, and it was decided to split production into two directions: the development of aircraft engines and automobile production. From that moment, the company's engineers focused on creating new products, and in 1923, the Germans shocked the public at the Paris Motor Show by presenting their first motorcycle, the BMW R32. It took the company 5 years to determine the directions in which it would work and develop: motorcycles, cars, and aircraft engines. This is what they decided to focus on. At the same time, BMW continued to produce the British Dixie cars and even won the International Olympic race in 1929. In 1930, the company's leaders made an incredible decision to go back 30 years and release a car called Wartburg. The motorized carriage of the past century took shape again in the form of the DM3 model. "Only a very good driver can own a Wartburg. A bad driver is not worthy of this car," wrote the magazine Motor in Sport. And these were not just words. The car truly deserved attention, as it could reach speeds of up to 100 km/h. The next achievement was the BMW 303 model, which amazed the public at the Berlin Motor Show. Under its hood was the smallest six-cylinder engine ever made, with a displacement of 1,073 cubic centimeters, and the manufacturers guaranteed a speed of over 100 km/h. The 303 model defined the appearance of BMW cars for almost 70 years. The next model to win the hearts of car enthusiasts was the 326 Cabriolet, which marked the end of the first 3 era. By 1941, the company had sold 16,326 units, which was a real success. But the Bavarians did not forget about cars for the so-called elite. The company's first limousine appeared in 1939 and provided decent competition to the Opel Admiral and Ford V8. However, just as BMW was starting to get back on its feet, a new war put an end to the development of cars for private individuals. All efforts were urgently directed towards the production of aircraft engines and military vehicles. 3,000 cars were produced at the beginning of the 1940s under the name BMW 325. The defeat of Germany in the war practically meant the destruction of the enterprise. The Allies, including the USSR, turned the factories in Eisenach into ruins. The surviving equipment was simply taken to Russia. But there was no turning back, and at a shareholders' meeting, those who survived World War II and did not leave Germany decided to rebuild the production bit by bit. At that moment, colossal resources and money were needed, and a huge number of investors were attracted. The company's management constantly changed depending on who contributed more money to the enterprise's treasury. Despite these problems, BMW managed to develop and release its first post-war novelty. Unlike the USSR, which had ready-made production lines and money, BMW's first official post-war product was the 250cc R24 motorcycle presented at the Geneva Motor Show in 1948. This was followed by the R51-3 and the 600cc R68 with a top speed of 160 km/h. By the early 1950s, about 30,000 people could boast of owning BMW motorcycles. But time passed, and the company still could not return to its main creation. The first attempt at car production in the post-war period was the BMW 501, which was undoubtedly received with enthusiasm by the public. However, there was one issue that almost led the company to collapse. The production of the 501 turned out to be very expensive. The 1950s were generally not the best years for BMW. Following the 501 were the 507 and 503 models, which also did not meet expectations, plunging the company into debt. Even a marketing campaign did not help. In general, only a miracle could save the situation, and, spoiler alert, it happened. The fact is that BMW simply did not have the money to develop new and advanced cars. Competitors were dazzling auto shows every year with crazy and luxurious new models, while the Bavarians could only watch. The last attempt to produce something was the BMW Isetta 250, or as the manufacturers called it, the Moto Coupe. These were the dying convulsions of a company on the brink of collapse. But to everyone's surprise, these so-called non-cars, which all competitors laughed at, became a lifeline. Who could have imagined that such an engineering marvel, once appearing on the roads of Germany, would revolutionize the automotive industry? The BMW Isetta 250 and the subsequent Isetta 300, with an engine capacity of only 298 cubic centimeters, won the hearts of hundreds of thousands of car enthusiasts. It was an incredible success, and in just a few years, 137,000 of these wonder cars were sold. Interestingly, they were especially loved in England, where authorities allowed people to drive them with just a motorcycle license, as they had only one rear wheel. However, even after such success, BMW faced another crisis. The year 1959 went down in German history for its financial crisis, which left even large companies on the brink of collapse. BMW, barely staying afloat, simply could not survive it. Once again, the question of closing the enterprise arose. After long discussions, the board of directors unexpectedly decided that the company could only be saved by merging with another company. Frankly, there were not many options, and the first on the list was Mercedes. But fortunately for fans of these two brands, the merger did not happen. Firstly, Mercedes simply laughed at the idea, and secondly, some of BMW's shareholders did everything to ensure that the company's shares ended up in the hands of Herbert Quandt. Thus, the company was saved from the financial crisis. Immediately after this, A new board of directors was appointed, which defined the main task for the company in the coming years: the production of mid-range cars and aircraft engines. Thus, in the winter of that year, the BMW 1500 rolled off the assembly line. The model easily accelerated to 150 km/h, reaching 100 km/h in just 16.8 seconds. In a year, 24,000 units of the 1500 were sold. Following the 1500, the BMW 2500 appeared, which sold 95,000 units and even won the 24-hour race at Spa. The 1970s were marked by an important decision in the company's history. From now on, all BMW cars would have a serial number depending on the class. The BMW 520, released in 1972, became the first post-war 5. Under the hood of the car was a 4-cylinder engine, and the 520 weighed 1,275 kilograms, which was incredibly heavy compared to all previous models. Moreover, the car was already equipped with seatbelts, so within a year, 45,000 people were buckling up every morning before experiencing the 13-second sprint to 100 km/h. But the Bavarians did not stop there. In 1978, at the Paris Motor Show, the first car capable of competing with Lamborghini was presented: the BMW M1, or E26, designed by Giorgetto Giugiaro. It accelerated to 100 km/h in just 6 seconds, giving the feeling of being in a Ferrari. But it was a German Ferrari. While working on such cars, the company did not forget about ordinary customers who were also waiting for new models from BMW. In 1975, BMW released another 3, the BMW 320, which became a leader in its class and time. The car's top speed was 192 km/h, and it could accelerate to 100 km/h in just 9 seconds. However, there was one big downside. The car consumed 14 liters of gasoline per 100 kilometers. But this did not stop BMW fans. The car lineup continued to grow year after year, with models like the BMW 316, 320, and 323, and from this time, BMW became known as a cult car. In the late 1970s, the lineup was expanded with the first 7s, specifically the 728 model. This 1.5-ton car could reach a speed of 200 km/h and was slightly cheaper than the newly released Mercedes S-Class. In 1983, BMW participated in the F1 Championship for turbocharged engines for the first time. Behind the wheel of the BMW car was Brazilian Nelson Piquet, and at the peak of its power, the M1213 engine produced 1,180 horsepower at 11,000 RPM. BMW became the first F1 world champions among turbocharged cars, but to the dismay of the French, no one was surprised by this victory. By the mid-1980s, BMW had firmly secured its place in the sun, and no one could say that BMW was a middle-of-the-road company barely staying afloat. In just 15 years, BMW went from a debt-ridden company to a leader in the automotive industry. Then came another race, literally, between BMW and Mercedes. As a result of the competition between the two giants, one of the most famous models appeared: the legendary M3 in the E30 body, which could accelerate to 100 km/h in just 6 seconds. The driver of the M3 could choose the type of suspension depending on road conditions: sport, normal, or comfort. BMW's journey into luxury cars began in 1989 with the release of the 850i. The BMW 8 Series was supposed to be the best flagship for the Bavarians and the main opponent of the Aston Martin Virage, Ferrari Mondial, Mercedes 500 SL, and Porsche 928. The BMW 850i was a technical marvel of its time, but as often happens, the luxurious sports coupe quickly faded into history after its bright debut, sharing the career curve of many similar cars. After the first 8, a car appeared that was honestly called the car of the century: the legendary M5 E34, powered by 380 horsepower. The M5 could accelerate to 100 km/h in 6.5 seconds, but no one ever knew its top speed. The 1990s were a time of renewal for the company. The 7s were updated, especially the 740i in the E38 body. the 5s were also not left out, with the E39 entering the automotive world with 7 engine options for every taste, from successful to fast. For the most unstoppable, BMW released the 540i. At the end of 1999, the company finally took the market across the ocean by opening a plant in Spartanburg, South Carolina. However, the Bavarian management soon realized that sedans alone would not surprise this market. BMWs were hugely popular in the US, but Americans loved not only speed but also form. The company began actively working on its first light SUV, which became the beloved X5. The main features were a unibody construction and fully independent suspension. The platform for the new model was borrowed from the Bavarian 5 E39. The X5 was the most popular car for 15 years, and only recently ceded its place to other models in the company. In 2002, the BMW Group achieved a record number of sales, with 1,057,000 cars sold, and also won the Car of the Year award in Russia. In 2003, the most luxurious model of the BMW 7 Series, the BMW 760i and 760Li, was introduced, along with a new sedan, the 5 Series. The BMW Z4 was recognized as the best convertible of the year. To consolidate its success overseas, the luxurious BMW X6 was launched in 2006, combining the best technical qualities of an SUV with a coupe design. Interestingly, the first in this class were the Japanese from Nissan, who rolled out the Infiniti FX35 crossover in 2003, specifically for the American market. Although Infiniti FX became more popular than the BMW X6, the Germans still managed to capture a share of the market. In 2008, BMW produced over 1 million cars a year, with more than 100,000 people working at its production and other facilities. The group's revenue in 2008 exceeded 50 billion euros, and net profit was 330 million euros. That year was the first time the Bavarians were able to pay off all their debts. In 2009, the world premiere of the new sedan of the legendary 5 Series took place. The top model of the lineup was the magnificent BMW 550i, embodying all the best qualities of the brand and serving as its calling card with its refined and stylish design, unparalleled driver comfort, and efficiency. In September 2011, a significant event for the group took place: the official launch of an ultra-modern plant for the production of carbon fiber in collaboration with SGL Group. The plant is located in Moses Lake, Washington, USA. The new facility produces carbon fiber reinforced plastic for BMW's sub-brand cars. In the same year, at the International Geneva Motor Show, BMW presented the innovative electric car BMW i3. In December 2014, the phenomenal BMW i8 was named Car of the Year by the influential glossy automotive magazine Top Gear. The competition was fierce, with many of the world's best premium auto manufacturers vying for this prestigious title. But the incredible capabilities of the BMW i8 were duly recognized. It is worth paying attention to the company's logo. Many people think that the BMW emblem signifies its aviation heritage and depicts an airplane propeller, as the company initially made aircraft engines. However, this is not the case. Throughout the company's history, the BMW logo has changed but remained recognizable. Only the colors, abbreviations, and emblem have changed. When the name BMW was entered into the commercial register in early 1917, there was no official logo. The first BMW emblem appeared that year, taking the form of the old logo of Rapp Motorenwerke, founded by Karl Rapp, with the letters BMW added. The color changed from white to gold, and the 4 sectors of the inner circle were done in white and blue. In fact, the BMW badge represents the Bavarian coat of arms, which features white and blue colors. This view is supported by company representatives today. Starting a century ago with a small factory, the company has grown into a global conglomerate with 5 plants in Germany and subsidiaries in Malaysia, India, Egypt, Vietnam, Thailand, and Russia. The cars produced throughout BMW's history are a true symbol of high-class, comfortable transportation. Interestingly, BMW is one of the few car companies that do not use robots in their factories. All assembly on the conveyor is done manually, and computer diagnostics of the main parameters of the car are carried out at the end. The BMW empire has faced the brink of collapse 5 times in its history, but each time it has risen and achieved success. It is probably worth saying a few words about Heinrich Erhard at the end, as it all started with him. Throughout his life, the talented self-taught engineer registered 128 patents in the German Empire. In 1891, he patented a process for the production of seamless tubes known as the extrusion and drawing method. Heinrich also influenced the development of the recoil-operated pistol, and a mountain gun, the Erhard Model 1901, was named in his honor. By the beginning of World War I, his company, which included BMW factories, had become the largest arms manufacturer in Germany. In January 1914, the number of workers exceeded 8,000. By 1915, it was 14,000, and by the end of the war, it was 48,000. By the end of 1917, Erhard's company was producing more than 2.5 million cartridges and shells daily, over 500 pistols, rifles, and machine guns, as well as up to 50 different artillery and anti-aircraft guns. After World War I, with the company's bankruptcy, all these operations ceased. As I mentioned earlier, BMW went its own way, separate from Heinrich Erhard. Initially, Erhard owned 31.2% of the shares of the Eisenach automobile plant. However, when he was 80 years old, Erhard left the company's management due to disagreements with other shareholders. Until 1928, Heinrich Erhard taught in his hometown of Zella-Mehlis, and in 1928, at the age of 88, the talented engineer passed away. In general, friends, I think this is all you need to know about the history of BMW. If I forgot to mention anything, be sure to write about it in the comments. And of course, share your personal opinion about the cars of this brand, because as you know, people are divided into 2 categories, those who love them and those who hate them. It will be interesting to find out how many of each there are. But for today, that's all. Rate the video and see you soon. Bye.